So I hope you've had a good lunch. Have you? I think I've got the graveyard shift because I think all of you are going to use this session to have a bit of a shut-eye. So I'm going to try and make this as snappy as I can. So a warm welcome and thank you for listening to us today. I think, how many in the room have heard of ACAMS? Can you have a show of hands? Oh, that's really good. And how many of you have attended our ACAMS KL seminar? That's really good. How many CAMS certified? That means you've sat for the CAMS exam. No one? Oh, okay, I've got a lot of work to do today. Okay, so I'm just going to give a quick background on what ACAMS is all about. And so bear with me why I will introduce ACAMS as an organization and then go into the CAMS certificate, because it will make some sense when I go into the exam itself. So ACAMS was founded in 2001, and our ethos was to professionalize the anti-money laundering industry globally. I put a little cartoon there to sort of give you a bit of a laugh. And our intention was to create a membership, a network organization of AML professionals to support each other in their professional work. And we do that through educating them, training them, certifying them, and helping them network with each other. It's very difficult. I mean, if you say you're in Malaysia, and how do you network with people abroad? So I'll show you slowly, and you see this agenda, how we help you network, not just here in Malaysia and in Southeast Asia, but across Asia Pacific and the world. Then we'll go into ACAMS membership and why that is required for you to take before you sit for our CAMS exam. And then I'll go into the CAMS program itself, all right? And at the end of it, you can ask me questions. I'll give 20 minutes for you to ask me any specific questions on the program. So as I said, we're an international membership, and we're dedicated to enhancing the knowledge, skills, and expertise of the AML industry, financial crime detection and prevention professionals. So we're not just for the banks. We're for non-financial institutions too, and I think you'll see later on the kind of support tools that we offer to the Mamsb, all right? Currently, we have 60,000 members globally, and they represent both the private sectors and the government sectors, and they come from, 150 countries, I think, and even more now. And many of them use CAMS as a program to set an international standard, engaging the professionalism of their staff. So what does that mean? It means that, some people asked me earlier today, Suji, CAMS is a program, is that very US based? And somebody asked me, what's the difference between CAMS and ICA? So we're not in the business of competing with anybody or saying, well, apples and oranges and all that sort of thing. So what we want to do is create an international standard, an intermediate certificate, which is what CAMS is all about, and help you develop your skills, your practical knowledge in anti-money laundering and financial crime. And most importantly, I think I mentioned to one of your colleagues today, is career enhancement, and I'll go into that later on. So what is the support that we offer here in Asia? So somebody also said to me, Suji, how come you don't have an office here in Malaysia? And my answer is, we've only set up Southeast Asia office 3 years ago. I come to Kuala Lumpur every month, either meetings with your various government agencies or private banks or even yourselves. And I'm perfectly happy to speak to you whenever you want, or you can set up meetings to speak to me. But the support tools that we have is 2 regional hubs, Hong Kong and Singapore, because they are the financial centers of Asia Pacific. We have 5 country offices in India, China, Japan, and Taiwan. We've now grown to a total staff of 20 people. They're based all over Asia Pacific. And our ACAMS Singapore office, and you'll speak to a lot of my colleagues, they will support you in your registrations, etc. So how do we support you regionally in Asia, we organize 4 free, I think I forgot that word, I think I did write it, quarterly APAC webinars. So what is a webinar? Every quarter, we sit down as a faculty, and when I say we mean current AML professionals across the industry, not just banks, not just government agencies, and ACAMS, and we decide on topics that we're going to discuss in our webinars. And we have something like 2,000 to 3,000 people across Asia that log on to these webinars on WebEx, and they listen to a panel discuss firstly about all the latest regulatory developments. It could be in Malaysia or Indonesia or Singapore, and how does that impact your work as an MSB? I think 3 webinars ago we did talk about MSBs and the development. We also conduct, I think some of you have said, 8 country seminars across Asia in which we bring the ACAMS training and educational facility to your country, and we invite both your private and public sector members to talk to you as an industry about how all the latest developments and how that impacts you. So this year we were very honored to have Shalini speak to us and speak to you about MSBs in Malaysia. And then we have workshops, I think some of you at the end of the day, to talk about all the practical implications. And then annually we have an APAC conference, and then, and that is about 500 people attend across Asia. What is our commitment to Asia? I know some of you say, well, it's not Malaysia, but if you look at anti-money laundering today, it's an international crime, it's an international concern. And we have 4,000 members across Asia Pacific. We're projected to increase by the end of 2018 to 6,000. Currently, we're working on translating the ACAMS syllabus into Bahasa Indonesia that will be available in January of next year. Why not Bahasa Melayu? Well, I think our thought was most people in Malaysia speak very good English, so there wasn't so much of a demand there. And we have chapters. So our Asian chapters have grown now in Southeast Asia, Singapore. At the end of next month, we will open a chapter in Jakarta, in Manila. And then, of course, earlier this year, we opened a South India chapter, which covers Chennai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. And I'll go into what this chapter means. So what chapters are? Chapters operate independently from ACAMS. So I and I've met my boss, Hui Dang. We don't actually run the chapter. Every year, we nominate an independent group of MSBs or banks, and they run the chapter for us in their country because they know what the concerns are. And currently, we have 51 chapters across the world. And I think we will be opening a chapter in Kuala Lumpur next year. Okay, and one of the benefits of a chapter is they hold 4 events a year, and they talk about topical issues. For example, in Malaysia, any bank Negara regulations that pertain to you will be discussed at the event. It's usually about 1.5 hours, and at the end of the event, the industry as a whole gets the opportunity to meet together, not under the auspices of your regulator, because a lot of people get afraid of talking about questions in front of their regulator. And a lot of them network, and sort of develop careers through these events. One of the great things about the ACAMS chapters, the 51 chapter, if say you're a chapter member of ACAMS Kuala Lumpur, and because you are a chapter member in Kuala Lumpur, you'll be able to attend the ACAMS events anywhere around the world, in the UK, in Germany, Hong Kong, or anywhere else. So that's one of the key benefits of it, international cooperation. So let me just go into the ACAMS membership. A lot of people say, why is it mandatory, Suji, that I have to become an ACAMS member? As I said, the ethos of ACAMS is about community building, networking, developing your knowledge and skill sets as an AML professional. An ACAMS membership helps you do that. How do we do that? One of the ways is, I think many of you picked up in our booth just now, our ACAMS Today publication, which is released every quarter on print and online. and it houses our resource of AML knowledge and information. So there will be interviews, analysis, articles, to sort of put it into perspective, all the practical knowledge that you know. I'm sorry. Oh, is that not me? Okay. The other element is we also do free ACAMS webinars. I talked about the APAC webinars, but we also do webinars on topics, and I'll show this shortly, on any sort of topic around the world. You can log on to it anywhere on your mobile, on your laptop, and listen to experts. So this is our faculty of experts. We have hundreds of them around the world, and they will talk to you on the webinar about what are the practical implications of a lot of AML regulations. And then, as I said before, the ACAMS membership through our events, our seminars, our conferences, helps you in networking and community building, okay? Of course, as ACAMS members, you will have preferential pricing to just about everything from our training and our events. And as I said before, it's the ACAMS today and the web seminar. So I'm just going to log on to this for a minute just to give you an idea. So this is a real-time example. If you're an ACAMS member, you'll have access to about 200 recorded webinars that ACAMS creates every year. We release about 3 to 4 new ones every month now at the rate of that. And you as a member can dictate what the contents are. If there's enough of you saying, look, we need to have more information or analysis on the implications to MSBs in Malaysia, we will record it for you. So this is an example of the kind of webinars we conduct. So, and the dates are there. As you'll see, I'm going to try and speak as loudly as I can. There is a webinar on November the 8th, if you follow my mouse, a risk-based approaches onboarding MSBs and issues for MSBs in securing banking services. So unfortunately, the timing is Eastern Standard Time, USA, but you can join it and listen to that. And then there's a whole lot of other studies and webinars that you can join. And this is only accessible if you're an ACAMS member. So this is our sort of library of ACAM training. Somebody else came up to me earlier and I asked them, why do you want to be certified? Why do you want to be accredited? And he said to me, at the end of the day, it's about career development, right? I don't know how many of you feel that, but it's about how do you move on, right? Not just how do you make the regulator happy, but it's also about career development. And ACAMS is very committed into that as part of our membership. We do a lot of things. Of course, we have our ACAMS career page on our website that ACAMS members can scroll at any given time and look at jobs available anywhere around the world. As I said, our chapter and seminars are great networking opportunities to meet with group AML heads in just about every institution. A lot of our people who come to our seminars, find their jobs through this sort of networking events. We also hold something called the ACAMS Virtual Career Fair, in which our members upload their CVs online at a given time and date, and their CVs then get reviewed by prospective employers, and then they conduct the first interview online, and then they follow through. So that's very, very popular. At the moment, it's been set in the US, and we have one in Europe, but we're going to launch one in Asia Pacific next year. So keep an eye out on that. As I said again, on the ACAMS today, we're always saying, this is what are the job prospects of this. Job prospects pretty good, and you'll see that later on when I go into the CAMS program now. So the CAMS program now, we're going to go into our Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialist program. As I said, in 2001, we set out on a mission to set an international standard for testing the knowledge of those entrusted with the dedication of detecting AML crimes. What sprang from this concept was really creating a standard that is recognized internationally amongst the private and public sectors, not just in Malaysia, not just in Singapore, but all over the world, okay? So we're not competing with ICA, we're not competing with Bank Negara. What we're saying is, you do CAMS if you're looking at an international certificate, and then you can add on your knowledge on your local AML regulations to the other courses. CAMS exam, or the course itself, as I said, it is really being viewed in many parts of the world. I know in Singapore it is. It's a minimum requirement if you want to work in KYC CDD. We speak to a lot of recruitment agents in Hong Kong and Singapore. The minimum standard you have is to be CAMS certified. That's what most of the financial institutions, I'm not just talking about banks, we're seeing a lot of insurance companies, public sector, they're asking now to have CAMS certified folk. We've just recently been accredited by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And Singapore government now is funding Singapore citizens and permanent residents to do CAMS. Hopefully we'll work something out with your bank, Negara, and be able to offer that to you in the near future. But this is an interesting slide because we did this survey last year. We always do this in terms of salary survey. And we found that 42%, CAMS graduates earn 42% more than their non-CAMS graduate colleagues. And then you can see here, the earning is in US dollars, and that's quite substantial. So that shows how we are perceived in the industry as an international standard. The CAMS study guide is available in 7 languages now, as I said, Arabic, Bahasa Indonesia coming soon, simplified and traditional Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, French, German, and again, we will increase the language opportunities there, so we don't want to exclude anybody. Another question a lot of people ask is, how do I qualify for CAMS Suji? Or the other question they ask me a lot is, why do I have to have 40 credits before I can sit for the CAMS exam? Now, as I said before, CAMS is a professional certificate. We're not an educational, what I mean educational is, anybody like a university graduate could just come in, memorize the syllabus, sit for the exam, and yeah, they're qualified. No, we don't believe in that. To professionalize the industry, we require the candidates to demonstrate that they have, at least before they sit for the exam, minimum competency in terms of, can they have the independence to study materials? Do they have the rationale and the aptitude to apply their knowledge in practical skills? I mean, that's what every employer wants, okay? And also, the 40 credits is also part of ensuring that the failure rates are, reduced. I mean, let's be honest here. So you can collect your credits. There's 3 sectors: academic qualifications. Don't worry, if you don't have a degree, we accept diplomas, postgraduate diplomas. If you don't have that, we will take into consideration your professional experience. I know some of you have been in the industry for 30 years or 20 years, and that's not nothing to be sniffed at. So what we will do is we will look at giving you 30 credits maximum for your professional experience. And then say, for example, some of you have done the ICA diploma, or some of you have done a Bank Negara qualification, and you can collect credits from those vendors too. So, as I said before, the reasoning, and I'll go into the CAMS exam later on, is because as a professional certificate, you will be required as candidates to demonstrate something more than just memorizing a syllabus and regurgitating it at an exam level. Okay, I think most of us are used to that. I mean, I studied like you guys under Singapore GC O levels or A levels, the British standard, which is all good and fine. But when it comes to rational and aptitude, I think the US psychometric testing, which is what CAMS exam is all about, does really push you to test your knowledge and your practical skills. So let me just very quickly go into the CAMS syllabus. There are 4 chapters. I know somebody asked me early on, 4 modules. Can I sit for a module by module and pass? No, that's not how it works. When you register for CAMS, after you've done the 40 credits, you'll have to make payment for the CAMS program, and I'll come to that later. And you'll then be issued with a ACAMS study guide. Okay? It's about 300 pages long, and you will study 4 key competency areas. The first area you look at is what is the concept of money laundering and counter-terrorist financing. And I think my hands have just slipped here. I apologize for that. And you look at the risks and methods involved in it, the corporate vehicles used in it. In this module, you look at how does that impact MSBs, financial institutions, non-financial institutions, all these sort of organizations, and how do money launderers operate within your sphere. Okay, so we're not only just going to look at concepts and principles and the FinCEN regulations, etc. We look at case studies, actual case studies, because that's what ACAMS is all about. And how does that impact? How do you use those principles to tackle those issues? The second chapter, I won't say module, is ACAMS only looks at international U.S. extraterritorial laws. Okay? We won't look at Bank Negara, we won't look at MES, we won't look at India regulations. We look at international regulations. So we look at, of course, you'll be required as a group to study the 40 FATF recommendations. People say, really study it? I'll say, yes, you do have to memorize it for those who do the exam, because a lot of the exam questions will cover problem questions. Can you please apply FATF recommendation number 4 to this case study? So you pretty much need to understand this at the back of your hand, all right? Then you look at Basel. I've spelled Basel incorrectly, forgive me. Of course, the EU money laundering laws, 1 to 4, Egmont, OFAC, and all of that. And then the third chapter, which is the core, 2/3, I'm sorry, I'll have to answer the question after this, I'm sorry. We'll go back to that, okay? So the third chapter we will look at will form the core of the ACAMS exam. What is the AML compliance program all about? And this is the meat of it. How do you assess AML risk? Because the whole point of us training you or doing this exam is that you can independently be able to do this after you sit for the exam. Okay? What are the key elements, the processes, the procedures, and controls in a compliance function? How to train your staff, or how to conduct training within your organizations, how to conduct independent audits if your regulator asks you for that. KYC CDD, so you will learn everything from raising red flags, suspicious activity reporting, how do you file it, and transaction monitoring elements, and then of course, as I said, the red flags. And then the fourth element, or the fourth chapter, will be how does one conduct and report an investigation process within their organization? And what does that mean? It means, how do you deal with the legal counsel? How do you deal with your regulator? How do you deal with the decision-making process, the communication, etc. We'll come back to that later, so don't worry about that. And then we understand that to some of you, you are not AML professionals, and we don't assume you are. We do have one chapter just on the glossary of terms, and we will look at the definitions, key definitions that you need to understand to be able to tackle the subject matter. Chapter 6, we'll give you 100 mock exam questions, okay? And then you can practice that. And then, of course, Chapter 7, and again, as I said, because it's a professional certificate, we do require you to use your thinking caps. There's no spoon feeding. You'll be required to go away and not just rely on the ACAMS study guide. Here in this chapter, we will give you links in which to refer to, say, the FATF website, Basel website, related associated money laundering regulations to actually refer to while you do your studies. So that's very, very important to note. So what is the ACAMS exam? How long does it take? Rule of thumb is, as soon as you get your ACAMS study guide, we recommend that people spend no longer than 4 months in sitting and passing for their examination. Okay, so that's in an average about 70 to 80 hours studying for the CAMS study guide. There is no set exam schedule. Reason for that? Because everybody has their own pace of studying. When you're ready to sit for your exam, you then contact ACAMS in Asia, and we will issue with something called an exam voucher, and you will be able to book your examination with one of the exam centers in Kuala Lumpur. I think there's some in Penang, in Johor Bahru. And then on the day of your exam, it's a closed book exam. You go into the exam center. They won't even let you take in a piece of paper or a pen. You sit in front of a computer terminal and you do your examination. At the end of that, you will then find out whether you passed or failed it. Okay, that's what we mean by it. In terms of the pass mark for CAMS, it has increased this year because we changed our CAMS syllabus. On February of this year, we're now on the 6th edition of the CAMS study guide. So, what does that mean? We've had to reset the exam questions, etc. And the committee decided to, the committee being current AML professionals, decided to increase the standards. So the pass mark now is 75%. As I said, 80% of the questions will be based on case studies, 20% on factual memorization. You will be tested on how you can apply the AML principles that you read in the study guide in a timed condition. All right? What happens if you fail the exam? This has not been announced yet, but we're making this a bit stricter. From the time of registration, you have 1 year to complete the CAMS exam. You have 3 attempts to pass it. Each time you fail it, there is a CAMS exam retake fee of $299 US, and you have to wait 2 months. Why 2 months? Because we reset our exam questions every 2 months to keep it relevant. I think we've had one guy, I don't know where he was from, he sat for the CAMS exam 7 times. And the reason, because he kept memorizing the exam questions, not realizing that we reset the exam questions every 2 months, and he kept failing it all the time. But usually, all things moving forward, if you follow the 70 to 80 hour rule, you should be able to pass the exam in your first attempt. And there's no reason why you shouldn't. Support tool. So recently, in the last 18 months, we launched something called the CAMS Virtual Classroom Series. Some people asked me earlier, Suji, why can't it be face-to-face? I prefer classroom training. Yes and no. I think generally across Asia Pacific, and judging from the pass rates, so we looked at statistics, those who went on classroom training and those who went on virtual class, the virtual class candidates passed and passed very well. The reason is because we set 6 consecutive weeks of virtual classes. So every Monday between 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at night, you'll sit in front of your computer, and a CAMS tutor will go through the syllabus chapter by chapter. He will give you pre-class reading assignments. So every week you get to prepare a question. You will then go through mock exam questions that you won't normally do, okay? And you'll have an opportunity in the last 15 minutes of the class to ask questions and answers. And you're anonymous. So nobody can see you because you're in front of your computer, okay? And the next session we have is on November the 6th. It will finish in December the 11th. So if you're thinking about doing it, this is a pretty good time to consider it. The CAMS Virtual Classroom is an additional cost, and that's US $495. So we'll come to the CAMS fees shortly. For those of you who are still, I mean, we're going to phase this out, the classroom training, because we've seen, many people have failed the classroom training. We will hold the last one of the year in Singapore on November the 19th, and that's a very intense course. I mean, I would recommend those people who have really studied the course for 6-7 months, they need to just go in for one day and just cram it in, and that's more suitable for them. But I think virtual class is something more of use to you. So I just added the slide just now because in ringgit and in US dollars. So the fee is, when you sign up for CAMS, what do you get for it? You get the CAMS study guide, okay? You get the CAMS exam fee for one sitting, right? You get the ACAMS online exam prep seminar, which is mock exam questions that you can practice. And of course, the mandatory ACAMS membership. Why ACAMS membership? Because the ACAMS membership is the resource for AML knowledge that you have to use. All right? So the minimum cost is something like 7,518 ringgit, which is the 1,790 cost. So those are the three options that you have to sitting for ACAMS. And I'm happy to email that to you after the session. People ask me, why does ACAMS require me to recertify yourself? So look at lawyers, okay? Permit me to look at lawyers or accountants have to certify themselves every year. Why? Because they're working in highly developing environments. So same thing in regulations. Regulations are constantly evolving. The purpose of our recertification process is to ensure that ACAMS candidates, or graduates for that matter, have maintained their skills and knowledge sets, and it's current. See, I did the ICA diploma. I mean, don't tell them that. I used to be the head of ICA for UK and Northern Europe about 4 years ago. So I used to be based in London. But when I did the diploma, the ICA diploma 7 years ago, it's now all out of date, because when I studied it, the UK regulatory body was the FSA, which is now defunct. We were looking at the second EU money laundering directive. So just to give you an idea of how much changes happens in the industry. So what ACAMS requires is to ensure that we keep our commitment to you as an industry, that you are studying and keeping your knowledge up to date. We're required to recertify every 3 years, okay? 3 years doesn't mean you have to retake the exam, okay? What it means is you need to demonstrate that you have done more AML training. You earn credits just by working within the AML sphere. If you attend a Bank Negara here in Malaysia event, you'll get credits for that. For writing papers in AML, for speaking, you will also gain credits on that. So the way we gauge or calculate your commitment to the industry is through this credit system. What if you lapse your recertification? That means you'll have to retake the ACAMS exam all over again, because that's the only way we can ensure that your knowledge and your skill sets has been updated. I'll be very quick about this, because I think this is not so relevant, but I just want to show you about, motivating you to go something bigger. We launched our advanced ACAMS certificate 2015, and that at that level, we require the candidate to be ACAMS certified, and then they have to submit their CVs to our board, our academic board, and every year we only select 25 candidates across the whole of Asia. And what does that mean? Because at that level, there's no more exams. Okay, it's like an MBA course. You sit for a 3-day residential program in front of a board. You present papers. You write white papers, and then once you passed it, basically you don't have to recertify for ACAMS anymore. And what at that level, basically, because there's so few of them around, a lot of organizations start knocking on your doors and they start wanting to recruit people. We get that a lot with the different banks. So we have AML audit, which is we have 2 certificates in advanced level. AML audit looks at, how to conduct and formulate an AML audit program within your organization, not just banks, by the way. And the second one is advanced ACAMS, financial crime investigation, which is very popular with the government sectors and the enforcement agencies, and looks at investigations, etc. We also do other AML training. People came up and asked us about this earlier. The reason why I focus on CAM, because Shalini mentioned that as an organization, you wanted to look at a certification type training, which makes sense because it's internationally recognized. CAMS and advanced CAMS are the only certificate, exam certificate we do. We do, ACAMS AML Foundation, which is our basic AML course. It looks at an introduction into AML. It's a 4-hour online course. And then we do ACAMS specialist certificates, also for our 2 virtual classes, and looks at a variety of specialized areas: sanctions compliance, KYC, CDD, transaction monitoring, counter-terrorist financing, etc. And then, of course, we do webinar training, as I mentioned earlier, that you can log on. I think you have to pay for that per webinar. It's about $200 US. I think I've lost a few of them. I think they're fast asleep in the front row there, but I'll sort of let them have a sleep there. Okay, so I'm going to go into the questions session here. We covered quite a bit. I think because a lot of you have asked me questions, would you like to now sort of throw some questions at me and I'll try and answer them as much as I can? Okay, please do. Well, what is your question? Oh, you got the answer? Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, you got the answer? Are you sure? Okay. Any other questions?
Slides, I'm not sure which one.
On what topic, sir?
1 year, 2 year, 3 year program. What?
Oh, okay, sure. No worries.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So the fees, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what it means is, you have an option. The ACAMS certification program costs $1,495 US, okay? And that is mandatory to sit for ACAMS. The 1 or 2 year refers to the ACAMS membership piece, okay? So we give you an option. Some people, for budgetary constraints, they don't want to do 3 years. You're perfectly, able to sign up for 1 year. But 3 years is significant. As I said, again, it's the recertification cycle. Because some people say, I don't want to be reminded to renew my membership every year. I do the 3 years. But you're perfectly capable of, able to sign up for 1 year and be fine with that. No, it's not to do with the length of the course. So the course is basically, it's the ACAMS membership. So what is important to note, as I said earlier, is everybody who sits for CAMS has to be an ACAMS member, right? Because the ACAMS membership gives you access to a resource. So the 1 and 2 years here refers to the ACAMS membership piece. So it's your choice whether you want 1 or 2 or 3 years. It's to do the 1 year. It's nothing to do with the exam. So we recommend that you sit for your exam within a year of receiving your materials. Because we had statistics. We showed that people wait 2 or 3 years. The failure rate started increasing, We look at global statistics anyway, and that's what we saw.
Okay, thank you.
No, pleasure.
Okay, one question. On top of the membership, because we need to be accredited again every 3 years, right?
I can't hear you. You had to be accredited what?
Every 3 years?
Recertified, right, yeah.
So recertified, there is another fees?
No. Oh, yes, there is, yeah. So every 3 years, you will have to pay a recertification fee, but if you recertify early, it will be cheaper than recertifying late. So it's like $200 every 3 years.
It's not the full fee, Suji?
No.
It's not this full fee?
No.
So recertification is at US 200?
Yeah.
Not this US one, let's say.
No, this is just because of the certification. So if you look at the table again, let me refer to the 1790. Let me just look at that. What do you get for 1790? You get the CAMS study guide, the CAMS exam fee. So once you've graduated, you don't need any of that, right? So the only thing you need to do is maintain your ACAMS membership, which is $295, plus the recertification fee, which is $200. That's $400, yeah, dollars every 3 years.
This is the discounted rate, right, Suji?
No, I will come to that. Shalini is like jumping the gun. Okay, so this is what, I'll jump to that to maybe wake everybody up and get them excited about something. So we were delighted to be invited by Shalini to address everybody today. So we'll offer a 10% discount for the 3-year certification package to attendees, only the attendees here today. I mean, we'll check with the list that Shalini sends us. So instead of 9,429 for the 3 years, you'll be paying like 8,486, hopefully that will encourage you to sign up for the program. But if anything, I think what is important to understand is the international nature of what CAMS is. I think career development, very important. CAMS, because of the international nature, as I said, I worked in the UK for almost 20 years in compliance and AML. So a bit of my background, I started out right at the infancy of when AML started with a company called Factiva. At that time, they were, after the Bali bombing in 2004, and they were asked by the Union Bank of Switzerland to create the first PEP list ever in the world. And I was part of that group. I was very lucky to be part of that group. And I've seen compliance and AML compliance for that grow exponentially in the last, 15 years. So in that time, I can say that the support that ACAMS gives internationally is second to none. Nobody else in the world provides this sort of support in terms of not just professionalizing your skill, but giving you the opportunity to continually develop it. All right, that's very important. And also putting some sort of, emphasis on your career development. I think that's very, very important. There's nothing, I've done courses, I'm not going to look at anybody, I'm just going to say very generally, where at the end of the course, what next? Exactly, what next, what do you do with it? Even if you want to get a better job or move into a different area of AML compliance or compliance in Malaysia, certainly the ACAMS certificate. I know all the international banks here in Malaysia. I know them because they are ACAMS global corporate clients. They require all their staff to be ACAMS certified. I mean, we're training something like 40 to 50 at a time. Currently in Taiwan, my colleague Wilson outside is going to Taiwan tomorrow because 2,000 people are sitting for CAMS, different parts of the world. In India, I can't name the bank. I mean, they have put a policy in their bank now that all entry-level AML staff have to be CAMS certified before they have their roles, confirmed as permanent. So these are developments going on around the world that shows that a lot of financial and non-financial institutions see the value of the service that we provide, not just in education, in training, continual professional development, but also the networking, etc. I think that's very important to note. I mean, I saw this, I think Shalini, I shared this with you a couple of months ago, I think when we had lunch. Hui Dang, I'm sure many of you know my boss, Hui Dang, who's the head of Asia. I mean, she's a very dynamic character. She was mentoring an Indian banker who was based in Singapore. And he became CAMS certified and all of that. But through the networking through ACAMS Singapore chapter, I'm not joking, this is true, he got a job 2 years ago with a major bank in New York, and his pay is $1 million US. I'm not joking, but this is a fact. And it's through just networking. It's not about just sitting on your qualifications. What do you do with it? If you don't have the platforms, i.e. the forums, meeting with the right people at the right time, there's nothing, it doesn't mean a thing. All right? So on that note, I would like to say thank you to you for listening to me. I'm sorry that I've lost some of you in a post-lunch sleep. But if you have further questions, I know some of you may not like speaking in a public forum. Please do email me or my ACAMS Asia Service team. Next week, I'll be at the IFCTF conference, so I may not be available. I'll be back in Malaysia again, but if you would like to meet up with me, you can next week, okay? And we look forward to welcoming you to the AML ACAMS global community. If you don't want to do the certificate through our events or seminars, or join us for a free webinar, that's a good test, listen to us, and we are a resource, and that's what we want to do. So thank you very much today. Thank you.